There's a particular sound a kettle makes right before it starts to whistle. A low gathering, like the water is deciding whether it has the energy. I stood at the stove this morning and waited for it, the way I've waited for it 10,000 times in this kitchen. And while I waited, I looked at the second chair at the table, the one nobody sits in anymore, and I thought about the phone call I got last Tuesday and how that chair has somehow become the thing my whole life is now being argued over. Catherine called. My oldest. She has a voice she uses when she's about to manage me, soft on the surface and iron underneath. And the moment I heard it, I knew. She wanted to talk about the house, about how big it is for one person, about the stairs, about what would happen if I fell and nobody knew for a day, maybe two. She didn't say the word home, the kind with a brochure and a nurse's station and a dining room that closes at 6. But the word was sitting in the room with us the whole time, the way a smell sits in a room. And I want to tell you something I didn't tell her. My name is Evelyn Grace. I'm 92 years old. I've lived in this same house for 44 years. I raised 3 children inside these walls. I buried my husband 11 years ago, and I am still, let me be careful with this word because it's the one they keep trying to take from me, I am still the person who decides. I'm telling you this because I think I know who you are. You might be the one being decided for. Maybe you're 70, 75, 80, and your children have started speaking about you in that gentle, terrible way, the way you once spoke about your own mother. Or maybe you're younger, and you're the one doing the deciding, and somewhere underneath the worry you can feel that something about it isn't right, and you don't know what. Either way, sit down. The kettle's almost ready. I have some things to say that nobody said to me when I needed to hear them, and I'm too old now to say them softly. Let me start with what's true, because I won't lie to you to make a point. I am not what I was. My knees announce themselves on the stairs. I keep a list by the phone now because names slip, not the people, just the names. Like the label peeling off a jar while the jam stays exactly what it is. I drive in daylight and on roads I know, and I gave up the highway 2 winters ago without anyone asking me to, because I felt the moment my judgment got slower than the traffic, and I made the call myself. That's the part they never give me credit for. I have spent 92 years noticing the truth about myself before anyone else had to point it out. I noticed when I was too tired to nurse a 3rd baby, and I asked for help. I noticed when Harold's hands started to shake before the doctors had a name for it. I am very, very good at knowing when something is more than I can carry. So when Catherine calls, and her voice goes soft and iron, what wounds me isn't the worry. The worry is love wearing the only coat it owns. What wounds me is the assumption underneath it that I've lost the one thing I never lost, the ability to look at my own life and tell the truth about it. Harold would have hated this. He'd have hated all of it. He was an engineer, my husband, retired one, a quiet man, dry as a good cracker, and he drank his coffee black his whole life and read the newspaper every single morning, front to back, even the parts he disagreed with, especially those. He had this way of solving a problem by going completely silent for a long time and then saying one sentence that fixed it. 52 years I was married to that man, and in 52 years he never once decided something for me and called it caring. If he thought I was wrong, he'd tell me I was wrong to my face, and then he'd let me be wrong if I insisted, because he understood something my children have forgotten, that a person has the right to their own life, even the parts of it that scare the people who love them. I find him in this house still, not in a ghostly way. I'm too practical for that, and so was he. But I'll open the drawer where the spare keys live, and there's his old reading glasses in the back, the arm bent where he sat on them, and for a second the whole man comes back. I poured his coffee for 40 years, and I still, 11 years later, sometimes reach for the second cup before I remember. The body keeps habits the heart can't afford. I've stopped being embarrassed by it. There's a kind of company in it even now. People assume the worst thing about being old and alone is the loneliness. It isn't. I've made my peace with the quiet. The worst thing is being slowly, lovingly erased while you're still in the room. Let me tell you how it happens because it doesn't happen all at once. It would be easier to fight if it came all at once. It starts with the small things being taken. Catherine reorganized my kitchen one afternoon to make it safer, and she meant it kindly, and now I can't find the colander without opening 4 cupboards, and every time I do, I feel a little more like a guest in the house I bought. Robert T., my middle one, the practical one, lives 3 states away and calls on Sundays. Robert sent me one of those medical alert necklaces. A good gift, a sensible gift, the gift of a man who solves what can be solved. But he sent it with a note that said, "So we don't have to worry," and I sat with that for a long while. So we don't have to worry, as if my falling were primarily an event that happens to them. That's Robert all over. He'll find you the most logical solution to a problem you didn't ask him to solve, and he'll be genuinely hurt when you're not grateful, because he can't see that the logic was never the issue. I don't need a better answer to, "What if she falls?" I need someone to ask me first what I want my life to feel like, and then build the safety around that, instead of building a smaller life and calling it safety. And then there's Diana, my youngest, 61 now, the one who calls the most. Diana feels everything at full volume. When she worries in Technicolor, and she'll call me at 9 at night because she read an article about a woman my age who lay on a bathroom floor for 16 hours and now she can't sleep, and somehow it's my job to comfort her about my own death. I love that girl more than my own breath. But I learned something hard about her, and I'll tell it to you straight because you might have a Diana of your own. Sometimes the person who needs you to be cared for the most is the one who can't bear to be the one who needs care. Diana isn't protecting me. She's protecting herself from the unbearable thought of a world without me in it. And those are not the same thing, though they wear the same face, and a mother has to be very awake to tell them apart. I wasn't always awake to it. That's my first confession to you. For about a year after Harold died, I let them. I was so tired and so hollowed out that when Catherine started making my appointments, and Robert started reviewing my bank statements, and Diana started calling every night to make sure I'd eaten, I let it all happen, because grief makes you compliant. Grief makes you grateful for anyone willing to hold the wheel. And I want to be honest, some of it I needed. There's no shame in needing. I'd be a liar and a fool to sit here at 92 pretending I've never needed a single thing from my children. But here's what I didn't see coming. The help didn't end when the grief did. The grief lifted slowly, the way fog lifts off a field. You don't notice it going, you just realize at some point you can see the trees. And one morning I could see the trees again. I was myself again. I was ready to take the wheel back, and they wouldn't give it to me. They'd gotten used to it, you see. They'd built a version of me in their heads, fragile, fading, in need of management. And the real me, the one who'd recovered, kept bumping into that version like furniture rearranged in the dark. That was the year I learned the most important thing I know, and I'm going to give it to you now, and I want you to hold it. There is a difference between being helped and being handled. Help asks. Handling assumes. Help adds to your life. Handling subtracts from it and hands you the receipt for your own gratitude. I didn't have words for it then. It took me years to find them, but I felt the difference in my body long before I could name it, that particular shrinking feeling. That's the tell. If someone is helping you and you feel yourself getting smaller, that isn't help. Trust the shrinking. The body knows before the mind admits it. Now. I told you Catherine called about the house. Let me tell you what I've been turning over in my hands all week, because this is the heart of it. This is the thing I'd want my own mother to have known. When your children come to decide for you, they almost never come with cruelty. That's what makes it so hard to fight. If they came with cruelty, you could be angry, and anger is clean. Anger gives you something to push against. But they come with love, and love is a terrible thing to push against, because pushing back feels like ingratitude, feels like proving their point, feels like the very stubbornness they're worried about. So you go quiet. You let them. And every time you let them, the next decision gets a little easier for them to make without you. I won't do it. Not anymore. And here's what I have decided to say to my children, the sentence I've been building all week at this stove, and the sentence I'm giving to you to say to yours if you ever need it. I am not a problem to be solved. I am a person to be consulted. That's it. That's the whole thing. Say it plainly and say it without apology. Not, I'd prefer if maybe we could perhaps discuss. No. They've been deciding for you in the language of love, so you answer them in the language of love, but love with a spine. I hear you. I know you're afraid. And I am not a problem to be solved. I am a person to be consulted. Let me tell you what happened when I finally understood this, because understanding it in your kitchen alone is one thing, and saying it out loud to your children's faces is another. And I won't pretend the second one is easy. It was Sophie who got me there, my oldest granddaughter, 25 now, sharp as her grandfather and twice as kind. She came to visit a few months back, and unlike the rest of them, she didn't come to check on me. She came to see me. There's a difference, and you feel it the second they walk in the door, whether their eyes are scanning you for decline or actually looking at you. Sophie sat at this table, in the second chair, the only one of them who ever does, and she asked me a question nobody had asked me in years. She asked me what I was afraid of, not what she was afraid of about me, what I was afraid of. And I'm 92 years old, and I sat in my own kitchen and I cried, because do you know how long it had been since someone treated my fear as mine, as real, as something I was allowed to have and to speak, instead of something to be soothed and dismissed? I told her the truth. I told her I'm not afraid of dying. I made my peace with that the day I held Harold's hand and felt it go cool. I'm afraid of the years between now and then being managed into nothing. I'm afraid of the version of safe where I'm alive and warm and watered and not actually living. I'd rather fall on my own stairs reaching for something I wanted than be carried, safe and useless, through rooms I didn't choose. And Sophie didn't argue with me. She didn't tell me not to feel that. She just nodded, this 25-year-old child, and she said, "Then that's what we'll build the plan around, Grandma. Not around their fear, around your life." And I tell you, I felt my own spine come back into my body like a key turning in a lock. That's the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves the idea of you safe. So now, let me say to you what I'd say if you were sitting in that second chair, because I suspect some of you have a Sophie and some of you don't, and most of you have a Catherine, and you need to know how to stand inside the love without being flattened by it. First, and I'm not giving you a list, these aren't rules, they're just things that found me one at a time. The first thing I had to learn was that I was allowed to be afraid and still be in charge. Those aren't opposites. My children think that the moment I admit fear, I've handed them the keys. So I learned to stop hiding my fear, which only made me look like I was in denial, and instead to name my fear and then name my decision in the same breath. Yes, the stairs frighten me. I'm keeping the house. Both true. Fear is information, not a verdict. The second thing took me longer, and it cuts the other way, because I won't sit here and only flatter you. The second thing is that sometimes they're right. Sometimes the worry is wisdom and the stubbornness is mine. I gave up the highway because I knew. I'll give up the car entirely when I know, and not a day before, but I'll know. and I won't make my children pry it from my hands while I pretend everything's fine. There is a kind of old person who fights every single thing out of pride and ends up proving the very point they're trying to disprove. Don't be that. Autonomy isn't refusing all help. Autonomy is being the one who decides which help to accept. Those are completely different things, and the difference is your whole dignity. The third thing is the hardest, and I almost don't want to tell you, but I promised you the truth. You have to forgive them. Not for their sake, for yours. Because here is what I finally understood about Catherine, my soft and iron oldest, the one who reorganized my colander into oblivion. Catherine watched her father die. She was there at the end, more than the others, and she has never once gotten over the feeling that she should have caught it sooner, should have pushed him to the doctor harder, should have done something. And every time she tries to manage me, she is trying to go back in time and save her father. She is fighting a war that ended 11 years ago, and I am the only battlefield she has left. When I understood that, I stopped being angry at her. I still don't let her run my life. Understanding is not surrender, and that's a distinction half the world gets wrong. But I stopped meeting her fear with my fury. I started meeting it with the truth. I tell her, "You couldn't have saved your father, sweetheart, and you can't save me from being old, and the trying is costing us both the time we actually have." That lands differently than "stop treating me like a child." It lands because it's true, and because it tells her I see her, and people will fight you forever when they don't feel seen and lay down their arms the moment they do. I want to tell you about a morning that changed how I think about all of it. Little Rose was here. She's 8, the youngest of the 7, all elbows and serious questions. The grown-ups were in the other room having one of those conversations about me in lowered voices, the kind where you catch your own name floating under the door. And Rose was at this table coloring, and she looked up at me, and out of nowhere this child asked me why everyone talks about me like I'm not in the room. 8 years old. She saw in one afternoon what I'd spent 3 years trying to put into words. They talk about me like I'm not in the room, and I realized that the whole problem, the entire thing, fits inside a child's sentence. The indignity isn't the worry. It's the not in the roomness. It's becoming a topic in your own home. And I knelt down. Well, I didn't kneel. My knees retired from kneeling around 2015. I leaned down and I told Rose that she'd just said the truest thing anyone had said to me all year, and that when she grows up and the people she loves get old, she should always, always talk to them and never just about them. She nodded like I'd told her the sky was blue. To her, it was obvious. We're the ones who forget. That's the thing about the very young and the very old. We're the two ends of the table. The middle is always worrying over, and we understand each other in a way the worried middle can't. James, my grandson, 23, he's another one. He doesn't visit to inspect. He sits. He'll come over and we won't even talk much. He'll fix something that's squeaking and I'll feed him. And it's the easiest company I have because he wants nothing from me except me. No agenda, no plan, no careful steering toward a brochure. Just a young man and his grandmother and a Tuesday afternoon. I wish I could give that to Catherine, Robert, and Diana. The ability to just be with me instead of always doing something about me. But you can't give people peace they haven't earned by surviving their own fear, and my children are still in the thick of theirs, and all I can do is keep being whole in front of them until they trust the wholeness. Let me say something now about being alone, because the title that brought you here probably promised you a lonely old woman, and I won't give you one, but I won't give you a fairy tale either. Living alone at 92 is not what the worried imagine. Most days it's good. There's a sovereignty to it. I eat when I'm hungry. I sleep when I'm tired. I let the radio play opera at 6 in the morning if I want, and there's no one to ask me to turn it down. I've earned every hour of this quiet. I raised 3 people into the world. I tended a marriage for 52 years. I sat with my husband while he left it. I am not lonely. I am alone, which is a different country, and I happen to like the weather here. But I'll tell you my third and last confession, the one I've been circling. There are nights, around 3 in the morning sometimes, when something aches and I'm awake and the house is so quiet I can hear it settle, the old wood ticking like a clock with no face, and in those minutes I am afraid, real fear, the kind I'd never let Diana hear in my voice because she'd be in the car before I hung up. I'm afraid of the in-between, not death, the fall before the help comes, the slow part, the part where I might need them in exactly the way they keep insisting I do, and I'll have to look at all my proud speeches and eat them cold. I'm telling you this because I don't want you to think the answer to being handled is to become a fortress. It isn't. The bravest thing isn't refusing all help. The bravest thing is staying soft enough to ask for it on your own terms, in your own time, by your own decision, and trusting yourself to know when that time comes. I keep the necklace Robert sent in the drawer. I haven't worn it, but I know where it is. That's autonomy, too, not throwing it in the bin to prove a point, keeping it close and choosing. So here's where I've landed, after a week of standing at this stove turning it all over. I'm going to sit my children down, not on the phone where Catherine's voice does its iron thing, in person at this table, in the second chair where Harold used to sit, where Sophie sits, where the people who actually see me sit, and I'm going to tell them I love them and that I know their fear is just their love with nowhere to go. And then I'm going to say the sentence, I am not a problem to be solved. I am a person to be consulted. Bring me your worries. I want them. They're proof you love me. But bring them to me, not about me. Sit me at the head of my own life. I built it. I get to decide how it ends. And if they fight me, and Catherine probably will, I'll say the other thing too, the one that took me 92 years to earn the right to say, I have been making good decisions about my life since before any of you were born. The fact that the decisions frighten you now doesn't make them wrong. It just makes you my children, and me still your mother, which I will be until my last breath, and a mother does not ask her children's permission to be alive. If you're the one being decided for, I want you to take that sentence. It's yours now. Say it kindly, and say it like granite. I am a person to be consulted. You'll be amazed how the room rearranges itself the moment you stop apologizing for occupying your own life. And if you're the one doing the deciding, if you're a Catherine, a Robert, a Diana, and you came here ready to be a little defensive, then let me give you the only thing I have for you, gently, from the other side of the table you keep talking across. Ask her what she's afraid of, not what you're afraid of, her. And then build the whole thing around her answer. You will lose her either way someday. That's the deal. That's the only deal there ever was. The question is whether the years you have left are years she gets to live, or years she gets to be kept. Don't keep her. Keep her company. There's a whole universe between those two words, and your mother is living in the difference right now, tonight, in a quiet house, hoping you'll figure it out before it's too late to matter. The kettle finally whistled while I was telling you all this. It does that. Gets going right when you've stopped waiting for it. I poured 1 cup. I'm 92, and I live alone in the house I've loved for 44 years, and I drank my coffee at my own table this morning, in the chair I chose, looking out the window Harold and I picked because of the light. My knees hurt, and my memory drops a name now and then, and there's a necklace in a drawer for the day I decide I need it. And not one bit of that makes me less the author of my own days. I miss my husband. I'll miss him until I see him. I love 3 children who can't tell their fear from my fragility, and 7 grandchildren, two of whom already understand more than their parents do. And I am still here, still deciding, still myself. That's the part I needed someone to tell me all those years ago in the fog after Harold, so I'm telling you now across the table while the coffee's still warm. You don't lose the right to your own life because you got old. You lose it the day you hand it over. So don't hand it over. Not the colander, not the car keys, not one single morning. Hold on to your own life. It's the only thing you were ever really given, and it's still yours.